Welcome to Conversations in a Vintage Shop, a podcast from behind my counter between customers. Join me while I sit behind my retail counter and just have a conversation with you, or with myself. While I look out the window, observe what I see, things that are happening in the store today, throughout the week, and just fun little stories that I have from my time as a business owner. This is something that you find interesting, then keep listening, and I appreciate you. Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining me on episode 6 of Conversations in a Vintage Shop, a podcast where I bring the conversations that I have between myself and my customers to you. That way you can share in all of the weird, odd, and random conversations that we have here in the shop every day. And today I thought it would be fun to do something a little different. It's been a huge theme on social media for people in the service industry to share customer stories. And I thought it'd be fun to share mine, being that I am a small business owner and also vintage shop owner. And I feel like my experiences are very similar to others in the retail, restaurant, service industry. The difference is they all happen to me. I don't have any employees. I'm here all the time. So needless to say, I've seen a lot of things and I've heard a lot of things. And I want to preface it by saying that in no way am I making fun of people who come in here. You get people from all top walks of life coming in. And this is just one of those things where life can be heavy sometimes. So you really do kind of have to find the humor in anything. Otherwise, you literally will drive yourself crazy. And especially working in the service industry, it's hard. You're around a lot of people, a lot of different personalities every day. And sometimes you just don't jive with them. And that's okay. But sometimes you get some really interesting stories and things that you just have to share. It's one of those WTF moments of I have to tell someone because I just can't hold it in. And that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today. So if that's something you're interested in, keep listening. My brick and mortar shop has been open in its current location for a little over a year. For a few months out of that year, we were closed due to the pandemic. But the space I'm in now, it's front-facing. It's on one of the busiest roads in downtown Fargo. You get a lot of foot traffic, a lot of people walking by. So it's understandable that you get a lot of different people coming in, curious about your business, curious about your shop. And some of the people I get in are definitely memorable, mainly in bad ways. But there are always categories of people that come in. And you get, the people who are drunk, slur their words, just go on about nonsense. You get creepy guys that hit on you. You get sometimes people that you hold on to your mace pretty tightly. You get a lot of it. And 9 times out of 10, it's usually males that I have issues with. And again, being a female working here by myself, I have no bodyguards, I have no security. At least if you work at the mall, you have, mall security or mall cops or whatnot. In small businesses, you don't have that. So you are the security guard. You are the patrol person. You are everything. So you have to learn different ways to handle conflict and handle some of these odd customers. So I compiled a list of some of my most memorable customers, and by no means is this a comprehensive list. These are just ones that either happened recently or pop out in my head. And the first one I'm going to talk about is a guy called the Black Leather Jacket Guy. And this man falls into the category of what I call the Casanovas. The men that come in who think they are God's gift and they can woo you and swoon you. It makes me sick. It's so I can't tell you how many times I have people like that come in, and I just immediately get this glazed over look on my face. Same song and dance. Yep. Oh, yay. Great. You think I'm a beautiful woman? All right. Okay, bye. It's the same conversation. But this black leather jacket guy came in, and this actually happened today. It's early November. And I have a Ouija board in my window. I haven't reset my window display from Halloween yet. And he just comes bursting in the door. And keep in mind, I have other customers in here. I'm not by myself. Which sometimes I almost would rather be because it's kind of embarrassing. But he comes in and starts talking about how he had a Ouija board. And the last time he used it, he burst into flames. I go, okay. Wow. Yeah, it bursts into flames. But I'm just that kind of guy. I'm a rock and roller. I came from LA. I was in a band. I'm going to start a clothing line. Then I'm going to donate everything to everybody. I'm like, oh, great. That's nice. Just doing my thing. And then he comes up to the counter and he goes, wow, you've got beautiful hair. Thank you. You know, I hope whenever you find a man, he gets on his knees and woos you. Yep, thanks. Because I know I would. All right, thank you. And they linger. They try to get any bit of information from you. What's your name? Are you single? All of that jazz. It's almost like they follow the same script. And, you know, he was one of the tame ones. But you get people in that category that come in and they think they are just so suave. And they will boost themselves up and just talk themselves up so much. It would be entertaining if it didn't happen so often and it wasn't so annoying. But a lot of us women have, unfortunately, come in contact with that category of customer. The ones that aren't even in here to buy anything. They have no interest in buying anything. I can take a lot. Like, if you're a paying customer, and even if you're hassling me a bit, I can take it. I'm a big girl. If you buy something and get out, that's fine. But when you're in here just trying to hit on me or just say weird, creepy things, and you're not going to pay for anything, get the fuck out. That's kind of the mentality I've had. But that one is black leather jacket guy. Tame against any other standards I have for the other categories coming up. But nonetheless, he's the most common one that I get in. And the next one, he's going to amp it up a bit. This next category of customer is going to give black leather jacket guy a run for his money. So prepping for the next customer that I'm going to be talking about, I've had many interactions with this gentleman. And I say gentleman out of politeness. I'll let you decide after this if he is one or not. But myself and other people on my block have had interactions with this man, and every time I hear about an interaction, I can't help but laugh. And I have to say, I'm not making light of some of the things that I'm going to be talking about that have happened. But when you look back on things, again, I will say this. You have to have a sense of humor, because unfortunately, this is life. If you are a woman by yourself, you deal with this all the time. Whether you're at work, you're walking down the street, all the time. So please hear me when I say I'm not making light of any of this. It happened to me, and this is the way I have processed it. And that's all I have to say. But this next guy, I call him the bloody painting guy. And I've told people about this encounter only because of other interactions my customers and people who live on my block have had. And I know who they're talking about. And so we all piece together our experiences. My first interaction with this gentleman was when he came in with another lady who, she comes in fairly often. She's nice. I do know she does have some mental health issues. And I thought it was one of her friends. And as I learned, it was someone that she had just met and I think put a little bit too much trust in. So again, you get worried about the company that some people keep. But this gentleman came in and he was very talkative, very chatty. And he told me he was an artist. Is an artist, I should say. And he asked if sometime he could come show me his prints. And I said, sure, if you want to, I'll take a look. I'm not an art connoisseur, but you are more than welcome to show me. He bought a pair of sunglasses and left these little polished stones at my counter that were wrapped with rubber bands and had little pieces of paper on them. And he said they were gratitude stones. I thought, oh, that's a nice idea. And he places them around the city, mainly around the downtown Fargo area. And I thought, okay, well, he left all these here, so I'll give them to some of my favorite customers. And I did. And they would open them. They go, oh, that's a cute quote. Uplifting quote, great. Flash forward the next day. This gentleman came in almost every day that week. And the next time he came in, he brought a portfolio with him of all of his drawings. And he just sat on my floor next to my counter and was opening up his portfolio, very proud of his drawings. And he was very good. Like, I will give him that. He definitely is a very talented artist. And he brought this one and he showed it to me. And it almost looked like watercolor. It was brown, had some etchings on it. And he goes, this is one of my favorite ones. I go, oh, it's interesting. What medium did you use? And he said, it's my blood. And I paused for a minute. And part of my OCD kicked in where I felt like I just needed to sanitize. I needed to cover myself. I didn't touch the painting. But when you're in close proximity to bodily fluids, whether they're fresh, dry, I don't care. You get that immediate twitch, I really need to douse myself in any kind of sanitizer I possibly can. And he said, yeah, I used my blood and I made it a part of the artwork. And I thought, okay, everybody has their something. I get it. But still, it was a little unnerving. It was very random. And he got up and left. And he would pop in every day since then, drop off more stones. But the more he came in, the more he would ask to hang out. And we should hang out outside of here. Why don't I just run next door? I'll go buy you coffee. Which, again, a huge girl code rule. Don't take anything a stranger gives you to drink. I don't know this man from Adam. I've met him a couple times. No, I do not want you to buy me something that I can consume without me seeing it first. So whenever people start to do that, my red flag alerts just go up. Because unfortunately, this happens a lot at the shop. I have a lot of men coming in offering to buy me beverages. And I told him politely, no, thank you. I don't accept drinks from people I don't know. Well, it's just coffee or hot chocolate, whatever. No, I am going to politely decline. So he left, and that same day, the girl that he originally came in with, again, she's super sweet, super nice, just got tangled up with the wrong person. And she came in and had asked for him if I was single and wanted a boyfriend. And I thought, okay, this is getting to the point where I have to cut this off now. I didn't want to deal with this anymore. I know where this is going. And I said no, and I would appreciate just him not coming back in again. It's not appropriate. And he didn't come back in after that. But I still see him on my block. I'll lock up and leave at night, and I'll see him at one of the bistro tables down the block at our local coffee shop, sitting on the ground, showing other people his portfolio of art. Until one day, and I know this is a story that I know my friend who told me this is listening. And I'm not going to give out your name. But it was very indicative of this man, and that's exactly how I knew it was him. One of my friends had gone to that coffee shop with another person she was with at the time, and they had found these little stones, polished stones by the coffee shop with these little coats on them. And they thought it'd be fun to film themselves unwrapping these stones to see what it said. They thought it was a great idea. And it is a great idea. I love it. And they were filming, and as they were opening it, you hear a man off camera approach their table outside. And the first thing you hear is, "Ladies, you are in the presence of a great artist." Which he is a good artist, but the way he said it. And my friend unleashed holy hell on him and told him, "How dare you interrupt us? Can't you see we're filming? How dare you come up to us and interrupt us? Who are you? I don't know you." And so he retreated, and they came down to my shop and they told me what had happened. And they said, "All we wanted to do was open up these stones and see what they said." And I go, "Well, you know that guy that approached you? He's actually the one that left them." Well, they threw them in the trash after that. But a lot of people have had that instance and that experience where they'll be sitting, enjoying their coffee or just walking down the street, and they will get this gentleman coming up to them saying, "You are in the presence of an amazing artist. I would like to show you my work." Those stones are still set out. They're still there. There are people on this block who find them and throw them away immediately because of who this gentleman is. And it's one of those things where some things can start off as being pretty harmless, but nothing ever stays that way. And as women, you get that. It's almost like the hairs on the back of your neck stick up. You get that innate sense when something isn't quite right and something is going to a place where it could get bad. And luckily, there are times when you confront people on it and they back off. They don't argue with you, they back off. And that's great. I wish that were the case with everybody. But it's not. So we're going to bump this up a notch a bit. Notice a trend here? I start with the most harmless, and it's going to increase. And the next one is definitely something I've never dealt with before, but it's going to stick in the back of my mind for a long time. And, it's a doozy. All right, so we're going to bump this up another notch. And moving on to a more escalated category of the drunken people who have anger issues. And this next guy, I call the drunk pickup truck guy. And in a moment, you'll understand why he got that name. I was working one night, and there are just... Eventually, when you work in the service industry, you just know when someone walks in your door that there's going to be an issue. You just know. And in this instance, it was the fact that this man just blew in my door. Like, ripped my door open and just came in and was belligerent as all get out. And I'm not going to imitate how he was slurring his words, because that's too much work. But he was slurring his words... very droopy-eyed, like you could tell he was under the influence of something. I'm assuming alcohol, but I don't know. But he came in. "What shop is this?" "It's a vintage shop." "What does that mean?" So I proceed to explain to him what a vintage shop is. "Oh. Well, what do you do?" "I run a business." And he just starts asking all of these random questions. And he proceeds to go to the back of my shop, and I have a men's section. And in front, there's a section of vintage reproductions of men's clothing. And he goes up to one of the cardigans, and he points at it, and he goes, "What's this?" And I said, "That is a sweater." What? And he just keeps repeating it. What is this? What is this? I go, sir, it is a cardigan, a sweater. He goes, I want one. I go, okay, great. He's looking through the pile. He said, I want a large. I told him, there is a large on that pile, so feel free to snag one. And at the time, late at night is when I get a chance to catch up on all my emails. So I'm at my computer, finishing up an email, and he stops and he looks at me and yells at me from across the shop, how about you get off your computer and actually come and help me? And I look at him, and he goes, I want you to stand right next to me. And he's very adamant that I come and stand right next to him and get close to him. And I said, first off, you will not talk to me like that. And second, if you're going to have that attitude, you can leave. And he stands there and he asks, are you really going to kick me out? And I told him, if you're going to have that attitude, yes. I don't have an attitude. I just want you to come over here and pick up this sweater for me. And I said, no, if that's the attitude you're going to have, you can leave. So he grabs the sweater, comes up to the counter, puts it down. He goes, I want to buy it. And I just wasn't having any of it. I said, no, sir, I'm not going to sell it to you. He was very confused. Why won't you? You're really not going to sell this to me? I said, no, sir. If you're going to disrespect me in my own shop, you can leave. And he was not accepting that. Well, I'm sorry. I didn't mean anything. I just want this sweater. And I said, no, sir, you can leave. Took a little bit, but he finally left. And I thought, okay, finally, I can get back to my email. It's very close to close. It's dark outside. I just want to finish up my work, close up, go home. A couple minutes later, I hear yelling out in front of my shop. And I look up from my computer, and he's standing pressed up against my front door, yelling and screaming, I'm sorry. And he's just screaming it, repeating, I'm sorry. And he comes in the door and he goes, okay, are we square? Do you forgive me now? And I told him, if you don't get out of my shop, I'm calling the police. And I grabbed my mace, and he goes, fine. And he walked out. Thought, okay, I have 5 minutes left. Finish up my email, get the door locked, and I'm out. A couple minutes later, I see this big pickup truck pull out right in front of my shop, right up on the curb. Big hunting headlights on the top of it, brown. And I see this man roll down his windows, lean out, and honk, and honk, and honk, and honk, wanting me to come out of my shop. Just honking. And eventually, he gave up and drove off and left. And I thought, surely this has to be the end of it. 3 times, come on. So I'm wrapping up. I ended up staying open a little bit later because I had a late customer. And I had a man dressed in business casual come in, and he was just kind of lingering around. And I'd asked him if there was anything I could help him with. And he introduced himself and said that he was a manager at one of the local bar and hotels a few blocks away, and said that he had a man at his bar who is intoxicated and kept talking about getting kicked out of a vintage shop. And they did a little bit of deduction as to which shop it was, because at the time, we have 3 vintage shops in our downtown Fargo area, and there were just 2 of us that were open at the time. And I don't know if they just assumed I was probably the one that was it, if it was the first one they went to. But I said, no, that was me. Yes, I did kick him out. And the bar manager had asked if he could ask why. And I thought, oh, great. Was this one of their corporate customers? And am I going to get crabbed out for kicking out an important client? Because I've had that before. You would be surprised how many entitled people you have in such a small area. And so I proceeded to tell him. And he goes, okay, I was just wondering because I just left for my shift. And we let him in and let him into our bar. But a lot of us were uncomfortable and questioning whether or not we should have let him come in. And now I'm really not comfortable with the fact that he was let into our bar. So I felt a little vindicated that it wasn't just me. But I thought, really? Not only was this guy driving, but he went and got more alcohol. And now he's off probably bothering somebody else. 3 times the charm, I guess. But it's good that someone was doing their job and checking in and seeing what actually happened. That actually surprised me. Some people don't do that. Some business owners, workers don't follow through, and that's when really bad things can happen. But it was a memorable one because it was just so random. And I've never had someone pull their car up to my door before. But I wish I could say that was the worst of it. Weird, yes. Aggressive, yes. But that's not the worst encounter I've had. And the next one I'm going to talk to you about is probably one of the most troublesome customers that I have ever come in contact with. And ones that I even still think about to this day. And I don't know if it's slight PTSD in dealing with them, but they are definitely memorable. And they were customers that every single business owner in downtown Fargo had dealt with. So get ready. So the next experiences I'm going to share with you do have a little bit of a darker turn to them. This is one that went on for a while. And I call them the cult couple. And these are my experiences with this couple. I know of numerous other business owners that have had their own experiences and issues with this couple. So I'm just going to be sharing what I experienced. And by no means was it the worst of what I had heard. So this couple had come into my shop when I was in the lower level of the building I'm currently in. It was a windowless space, not very big, nowhere to run. It did kind of feel like a jail cell. And this couple had come in, and it was a younger man. And I say younger, he was probably early 30s, and a little bit older, more mature of a woman who appeared to be in her mid-40s, early mid-40s, I would say. And the man was very talkative. They'd come in together, were asking a lot of questions, which was fine. Like, chatty couple, okay. They seemed nice enough. And they'd come up to the counter, and they weren't buying anything, they were just looking around. And the more they talked, the more uncomfortable and clear it became that this was not just a normal couple. Now, I have to say, they were doing 2 things that I noticed. Not only was what they were saying odd, but their actual gestures and their physical responses were really concerning as well. So I'll first tell you about the conversations they were having. And by they, I mean really him. He was the one that did the majority of the talking. And I'm not going to lie to you, this man really, and I know others would agree with me, really reminded me of a Charles Manson figure. Very charismatic, very talkative. And that's scary, first off. But he was talking about all these things. I mean, it's impossible for me to remember all the conversations we had. But it started off as him complimenting me on my appearance, which, again, is a huge annoyance when men come in and comment on my appearance. If women do it, it's one thing. If men do it, I immediately, it gets me irritated. But he was commenting on my hair and how beautiful my hair was. And he wanted to touch it. And he wished he had that hair. And just, again, getting very, very focused in on my hair, my appearance. He wanted to see me. He wanted to see all of me. And I was hoping at that moment he just meant like me from behind my counter, but that didn't happen. But But then he would start talking about my partner. And, oh, are you single? No, I'm not. I have a partner, happily, for almost a decade. Oh, well, you two should come over sometime. I want to make you a drink. You should come over to our apartment. We live downtown. I'll make you a drink. And in my head, I'm hearing, you're going to drug me. Immediately. And the way he said it, it was very aggressive. Like he wasn't going to take no for an answer. And that conversation kept steering towards, well, you'd be allowed to bring your partner with. I wouldn't make you come over alone. As if that was somehow any more comforting. But that also turned to, he asked what my partner's penis size was. And then started talking about his own. And it was at that moment where I was like, no, I don't want to talk about this anymore. This is weird. I'm closing. You guys need to leave. And all during this conversation, the way these two were interacting was another huge red flag. He had his arm around her, over her shoulders. And they were both probably 5'7", 5'8", not terribly tall. And he would almost have her in almost a headlock. Like he was trying to forcibly kiss her face. And like he was trying to cuddle her, but the cuddle was more like a headlock and her head would kind of bow down and she didn't say much and she looked visibly uncomfortable. Visibly uncomfortable. To the point where I would ask, are you okay? Are you good? And it was so bizarre. I'd never seen anything like it. And I used to work in a job where I was trained to see the signs of abuse. And I was starting to see them. But again, this was my first meeting with this couple. I didn't know their names. I didn't know where they lived. I knew nothing about them. But he kept doing kind of this weird little, it wasn't a stranglehold, but the way he was like latching onto her was bizarre. Just grabbing her hand, holding it tightly, kissing her forcibly on the face while she kind of would scrunch up and just look very, very unhappy with what was happening. And again, she didn't talk very much. So immediately I knew this was not a good relationship, that there was something wrong here. But they left. And I remember telling my partner how uncomfortable it was and how bizarre of an encounter it was and how it worried me. But I didn't know about this couple. I didn't know anything about them. So then one day my partner was covering my shop for me in that lower level by himself. And that couple ended up coming in and he got to meet them firsthand. And he got the same impression I did. Although this guy wasn't as involved conversation-wise with my partner because he's a guy and that obviously wasn't his thing. He got to meet my partner and that gave him something else to talk about. So they had left. I was told about this and I thought, great. This couple is never going to leave. They are never going to leave. And the fact that they live downtown, they're going to be everywhere. And that's exactly what turned out to be the case. A couple weeks later, I ended up working a vintage market. And I was at a booth. My partner had walked away to go to the bathroom. And out from behind a food truck that was across the street from me, I saw this couple peek. I kid you not, they peeked around the corner as if to see if I was by myself. And they came up. Proceeded to tell me that they'd been watching me. And they came here just to talk to me. And wanted me to invite me out for that drink again. Now, mind you, I was starting to get customers. And they saw my partner starting to walk back and decided that it was time for them to leave. Which, again, is another huge red flag. I again told my partner how uncomfortable it made me. The fact that they were hiding behind that food truck. And only came out when he left. And then left when he came back. I mean, at some point, it gets to be ridiculous. So I thought, okay, I'm moving shops. I'm not moving too far away from that location, but maybe they'll just forget about me. Maybe they won't come back. I was wrong. They came back. They came back into the new space, and their weird banter just kept going. They kept asking me and inviting me over to their apartment that was a couple blocks away for dinner, and would proceed to tell me how they would talk female business owners that work in the downtown area, and they would get these female business owners to let them into their homes and make dinners and food for them. They had told me a story about one business owner who, I think she was in her 70s, she was older, let them into her home and made them this traditional, I believe it was Norwegian meal. And now he had to tell her, this isn't adequate. I don't accept this food. It's not good. I don't want it. And tried to force her to make him something new for dinner. From what I could gather, this business owner kind of wised up, told them to leave, and told them not to ever come back in her shop again. It's sad that it took that much for her to realize it, but the point came across eventually. So they kept popping in. I would see them on my way to work walking downtown. I would purposely drive out of my way so I wouldn't have to drive past them. Because if they saw you in their car, they saw you in your car, they knew you were on your way to work. I remember one time they saw me driving into my parking lot and back, and I quickly ran into my building. And the moment I got inside, they were at my front door. Creepy shit like that. A couple weeks later, after I moved into my shop, we had what our downtown calls a coffee and cocoa crawl, where local businesses disperse and dispense cookies, hot chocolate, coffee to people in our downtown area and some of our customers. And I'd walk down the block to one of my neighbors who I saw had this amazing pistachio tea, and I really wanted some. And I walk in, and she's this beautiful, statuesque Russian woman, thick accent and tough as nails. And I walk in, and I see this couple in her business, and she was talking to them. And she invites me over. They say, oh, yes, we know Courtney. We're good friends with her. No, you're not. And so they were talking, and I don't know how I was there for such a short period of time. I don't know how this wide of a conversation happened, and what I know was only 5 minutes, but it seemed like forever. And this man started getting onto the subject of Joseph Stalin, because he knew she was from Russia. And he went on this huge rant about how Joseph Stalin did not get the credit he deserved, and how great of a leader he was, and how he saved so many people. I looked over at my neighbor, who had this really puzzled and confused look on her face. And she stopped him and she goes, I have to correct you here. He killed lots of people. He was not a good man. I don't understand where you're coming from. And he proceeds to tell her it was all conspiracy. People just wanted to kill him politically. So they made up all these stories. You know, we all sadly know people like that. After that, she had come down to my shop a couple days later and asked how she thought everything went. And I told her everything went good, but I had asked her, what did you think about that couple? And she didn't know what to make of them. That conversation kind of threw her for a loop, but she's a business owner. She's heard a lot of things. I proceeded to tell her about my experiences with this couple and other experiences I had had with this couple throughout the past few months. And I know I had heard from other business owners that this guy would come in by himself and start having these same conversations with young girls that worked at some of the clothing shops in my area. Girls who were probably no more than 18. And how I was worried. It's a safety issue. And from there, she went to action. the next time they tried to come in her space, she kicked them out and said, if you ever come near anybody on this block again, I will call the police. And that's exactly what she did. The police had been tailing them for a bit, because this wasn't the only complaint a business owner had lodged against this couple. Now, it's hard to know what to do in these situations. Because as a woman, and I don't know if any of you out there have had this as an experience, but when you have people who are in your space making you uncomfortable, a lot of times things don't happen because of it. If something physical or serious, or what's deemed serious, doesn't happen. They don't physically harm you. If they don't physically do something to you, there's not much that can be done. And that's really discouraging. So a lot of us had to take matters in our own hands and form a united front and keep them out of our block and our space. And not long after, the shutdown happened. So thankfully, my doors were locked. I did not have to see them anymore, but I did see them walking by. And I remember one day I was up front and I was taking photographs for my website. And I was startled when this guy pounded on my window, wanting to be let in. I swear I think my heart stopped. And I said no, and I walked away, and he kept pounding. I found myself having to hide in my shop until he eventually went away. But I had heard through the grapevine that apparently he had told another business owner that he met his girlfriend when he rented out her place for an Airbnb. She had been married at the time. She left her husband for him. This big sordid tale. But I knew there was just something more to it. There had to be something more to it. And eventually, I didn't see them anymore. I found out later that they had moved. I don't know where to. The woman he was originally with, I had heard had left him. But it's still that scary thought. You know, do I have to be afraid of him popping up in my store again? Walking by my window, in the alleyway, waiting for me as I leave and go to my car. And it's scary. And those are the experiences that I don't take lightly. But it makes you think. I mean, this guy had memorized my car to where he would come in the parking lot of where I work. And he would look for my car and know whether or not I was at the shop. If my car was parked out in front, he would know I was at my shop. It's very unnerving, but sadly it's not uncommon. So I know myself and some of my neighbors got lucky that we didn't have to see him again after that. And I'm assuming the pandemic forced him to move. I know he had said he was a day trader. It was just shrouded in mystery. A bizarre tale. But I had not met a business owner that did not encounter this couple at one point in time. And everybody has said the same thing. How they're pretty sure if this couple wasn't in a cult or trying to start one, he was possibly a budding sex trafficker. We don't know. I don't want to know. I hope no one ever has to find out. But experiences like this, you know, you get the ones that you can laugh off and go, oh, that's weird, and move on. But then you have other ones that really worry you. And as sad as it is to say, I know I've worked in the service industry ever since I was 15 and I got my first job. You get used to it. Doesn't mean you should, but it happens so many times, especially as a woman. And my first really big hit of that was when I was 18 and I was working at another clothing shop downtown. And I had a guy come in who wanted to know my name and wanted to go out with me. And I told him no, he didn't need to know my name, and no, I wasn't going to go out with him. And he didn't take that well. He threatened to beat the shit out of me verbatim and throw me through the mirror that I had behind me. And all while this happened, mind you, I had 2 people in the shop at the time, a couple, a man and a woman, who were watching. They slowly went to the back of the store, and they were watching the whole time as this was unfolding. And as this was happening, this was 10 plus years ago. I didn't have mace. I didn't have anything. The shop I had didn't have a security system. I was defenseless. I had a pen and my keys. That was it. And this guy finally left and went outside and began harassing this little old man that would always walk by at the same time every day. And once he left, this couple came up to me, and I'll never forget it. The man asked, "Are you all right?" And I said yes. I was shaken. Noticeably, my hands were shaking. I was scared. It takes a lot to confront someone who's threatening you. A lot. And the guy had said, "Yeah, I'm sorry. We didn't want to get involved. We just didn't want to get involved. But we thought we'd just stay to make sure." And I remember even back then thinking, okay, I get it now. I get it. It's up to us to defend ourselves and protect each other. I mean, apparently no one's going to do it for you. And I was only 18. I was just out of high school. I had worked at the mall. I had worked at a restaurant. And sure, you have difficult customers. You have odd people coming in. But I never experienced anything quite like that before. I mean, when I worked at a restaurant, I was a dishwasher and server, and I remember getting hit on by the 40-some-year-old cooks when I was 16. But I never had anybody threaten violence against me. And especially when other people were around and watching. So from that age and on, whenever I would be in a job and I saw something happening that wasn't right, I remember how it felt when no one helped me. And I really made it my mission to stand up, if not just for myself, for the people I saw it happening to. And you better believe it kept happening. I remember driving back to this shop when my employees, at the time when I was promoted as manager, would call me afraid because there was a man loitering outside the front door. And at that time when we left into an unlit, dark alleyway. And I would drive here and I would walk them to their car. And I never understood why other people didn't do the same. But that's why, again, I don't take any of this lightly. But the sad fact is, it's commonplace. Sadly, people like me are used to it. I'm 32. I've been working in the service industry since I was 15. You see a lot. You hear a lot. And you really build up a tough skin. I mean, sometimes it doesn't matter how thick your skin is, you're going to get rattled. And I know I just checked the time and we're 47 minutes in, you guys. That's crazy. This is what happens when I get on a tangent, but I feel like this is really important. And this started off as kind of on a lighthearted note, but it's not always lighthearted. And my point of this is, have a little bit more compassion for the people that you come across when you're going to a restaurant, when you're going to a small business. Because we all put up with it. We go through it. But especially when you see things happening that aren't right, don't just stand by and not get involved. Get involved. You really could be the difference. Because in my head, it's better to get involved than to not and find out that after that something really, really bad happened, whether someone got hurt, died. I don't want to know. But wouldn't you just rather take action and prevent something from happening? It's just a question. It's a question I'll leave you with. And I know a lot of you listening have been in the exact same position. And it's hard and you never really get over it. You think about it all the time and it hardens you. It makes you a little bit jaded. And it's a sad reality. But you just have to find your own ways of dealing with it and arming yourself and protecting yourself. And by arming, I don't mean weapons. I mean getting into that mental space where you know you can stand up for yourself, but also be on the defense. Because as women, we can never be too careful, right? Now I'm going to lighten up the mood a little bit because that was a little heavy. And I get it. It took a turn. I'm sorry, you guys. I didn't mean to bum you out. So I'm going to lift that up a bit. I'm going to lift the tone. And I'm going to give you a shop ghost update. We'll end it on that. We'll make this an hour-long episode. I'm going to make this an hour-long episode. So if you've made it this far, congrats. Come in the shop and tell me you made it this far in the episode, and I'll give you 10% off. So I'll just give you a quick update on the ghost experiences in the shop. And they haven't been as severe as the ones I detailed in episode 2. But I have been getting that noise of my back door opening all this week. It has been kind of rising in frequency again. I hear the handle jiggle or the door shut, and I'll go back there and the door is still locked. There's no one in there. I've been hearing papers rustling yet again. And maybe it's the shop ghost just really annoyed that I'm so messy in my office. I don't know. I still have my Ouija board out, so that's probably not helping. But so far the activity is still continuing. And it's harmless, just a little startling. And still people who are in can hear it. They still ask, is that the ghost? Or is there someone back there? And they usually know what the answer is going to be. There is no one back there. So maybe I'll keep doing these check-ins every few episodes. Let you guys know how our friendly neighborhood ghost is. What should I name our ghost? I've thought about having sands in the shop, but I am very superstitious, and I don't know what that would do. No one's harmed me. It's just a little odd. But that's your update. Still here, not scared, just hearing the noises. The typical noises of my shop ghost. That's going to conclude episode 6. If you want to hear more customer stories, I'm sure I'll have more eventually. Maybe this will have to be a continuation. I don't know. I'll have to do a series on it. But I thank you for lasting with me this long, you guys. This might be our longest episode to date. And again, you know I like to get off on tangents, and I'm doing it right now. I like to talk, and when I have something to say, I can't stop until I say it. But I appreciate you listening, and let me know how you feel about this episode. Head on over to our Instagram, at Conversations in a Vintage Shop. Let me know, have you guys had any weird, bad, scary customer stories? How have you dealt with it? Have you had people step in and help? Have you yourself stepped in and helped as a customer seeing something happen? I want to know. Thank you again, you guys. I really appreciate you listening as always. I'm really excited to see you back here next week for a new episode. Have a good week.